lined up on the grid, ready to go for the retro final. Lightning start as always from Tony Lynch. Terry Moore gets away well in the Austin Mini. Down towards the first corner, it's Lynchy who leads the way from Terry Moore then. Then comes Rob Buckmaster in his Ford Fiesta XR2 in third place as they come through onto the gravel for the first time. This is going to be a very exciting retro final, as it always is, because Lynchy versus Terry Moore. If you remember back to when we were at Glosso just a few weeks ago, it was nose to tail between the top two, and let's see whether that is going to be the case here, where you can see there that Lynchy's pulling out a bit of an advantage as they come down the back straight, but the agility of that Mini really pulls it back in the corners versus the rear-wheel drive Toyota MR2. Down in towards the first corner, you'd imagine that Terry's going to get really close onto the brakes, and indeed he does. Meanwhile, Rob Buckmaster there coming under a bit of pressure from Dan Swayland in his Ford Escort then. So two Fords, the Fiesta and the Escort, running very close to one another as they come through the dust at the start of the second lap. Good to see Rob Buckmaster back out in the Retro Rallycross Championship. Of course, this is a championship that's for cars that are significantly older than the ones we're used to seeing in the Five Nations British Rallycross Championship, and it's a credit to the likes of Shirley Gibson and her team, who managed to put in such an incredible effort to get these cars not only on the grid but racing very competitively against one another. And speaking of that, you can see just in the foreground there, here we come to the battle for the race lead between Tony Lynch and Terry Moore. They come through once again to start another lap. So we're used to seeing Lynch getting the whole shot away from the lights. The rear-wheel drive mid-engine MR2 has great traction, but then Terry really does begin to put the hammer down once the race gets into its stride effectively, and that is where he is able to close up. Bit sideways through there is going to cost him a bit of time, and you can see there 3 or 4 car lengths is now the gap between himself and the race leader, as third place still running close to one another. Terry's going to be a bit careful here because Rob Buckmaster's there ready to pounce if anything begins to present itself for an opportunity here in the battle for second. But you can see there that Terry looks like he's just about got this one under control. And speaking of under control now, Lynchy, of course, has got that breathing room for the time being. You see Moore going through and closing back up again. So if you hadn't made that mistake last time around, you do sit there and wonder what it might have been like in terms of the battle for the race lead, whether Moore would have had an opportunity to find his way through. In terms of the battle in the championship, it's very much Tony Lynch versus Simon Hart, and Simon, though he was on the entry list, hasn't competed in any rounds here on Saturday, so we assume that is down to mechanical problems, and it is going to cost him very dearly in terms of the championship challenge. Lynchy on 85 points coming into this weekend, Simon Hart on 71. Look at Terry Moore though, all over the back of the MR2 like a bad rash as they come through once again. We're coming in towards the crucial end of this race. Just to remind you, of course, no joker laps here in the Retro Rallycross Championship. They run as to the rules they would have done back in the day when these cars were in their heyday effectively. And you can see there that two-way scrap is almost becoming a four-way scrap here, because Lynchy and Moore are squabbling amongst one another. It's allowing Buckmaster and Swayland to close up as they come through into the back straight. This is where, of course, we know the MR2 has got great legs on the back straight, but if Moore can get a good exit, maybe he can try and find an opportunity, but I think it's just going to be a little bit too little too late. Or is it? Because Moore goes like a Dan Dare on the brakes for the outside line. He's going to try and get the switchback here as Lynchy runs it deep. It's side by side through the final chicane. It's Lynch versus Moore as they come towards the timing line, and I think Lynchy's just going to take it. He is! What an end to the final here in the retro class. Brilliant as always.